All right. So last time we talked a lot about pricing. I mean, that's a big part of your expertise. And I'm curious, is there any advice that you would be giving differently given this market about how SaaS businesses should be pricing what they do?
Yeah. So great question. I think that there's a couple of things. I think one, you need to realize that, again, as I was saying before, if you have your customers now, especially in B2B, those customers are with you. And historically, these kind of little blips or downturns are come in a couple of flavors. One flavor is, and this is like really early 2000s flavor. We haven't really seen this in a long time, a little bit, and even in 2008. But new customers will go zero, meaning like you just will stop getting as many new customers. And then your existing customers, because they've chosen you, are more than willing to pay more, and they're more than willing to like take a look at your pricing, right? Or take a look at new offerings that you offer. And so I think that one big thing to kind of keep in mind is I don't think we're quite there. I think if you reevaluate your segments, what you'll notice is people will cut, maybe some people churned, and then all of a sudden, again, those people who are with you chose you, and then your new revenue will kind of continue at the clip that it was going. And so I think that it's one of those things where the thing I'm trying to say is because of that phenomenon, you should be raising prices on your existing customers. Not because they're with you and they chose loyalty, but because you probably haven't changed your prices in years, because most people don't. You should be changing and, basically raising your price on your existing product at least once a year, assuming that you're making progress on it. And assuming your NPS or whatever you measure is over 20, and NPS over 20 is pretty weak actually, then you should be raising your price. And I think that's a really big thing that's hard for people to understand because they're scared right now, right? But it's like when the market was good, you also were scared, right? So you're just constantly scared to change your pricing. And I get it because it sits at the intersection of important and uncomfortable. And whenever we have things at the intersection of important and uncomfortable, like that's what happens. But I think ultimately, like the big thing you got to think about is, it's a good time to do it. You have to do it in the right way, which we're happy to get into. The second thing is finding different avenues to upgrade folks. So add-ons, additional products, localization, meaning just internationalizing your price, meaning you have different prices in different regions. Even if only 20% of your customer base is in a different region, it's a really good thing to start implementing because you'll start getting higher volume in certain places where you're priced too high. You'll start getting more revenue in certain places where you're priced too low. And then I think that I would say we can go deeper on any of these. If you get really scared or you're like, I'm unique, I'm a beautiful snowflake, which everyone typically thinks, which is fine. The biggest hack that you should be doing is how do I get more community and more free? So one of the big things we saw during COVID is that some folks would try freemium offerings or community-based offerings because everyone's looking for information or everyone's get a little skittish, especially B2B customers during kind of recessions or things like this. And so if you can find a way to bring as many of those people into you now and kind of take advantage of that feeling, even though it's a negative feeling, whoever holds on to the most customers at the end of this ends up winning, right? And so one of the most successful things that we saw was one company, they did these competitive offerings because B2B companies are looking to cut. And they went to people who were with giant, offerings that just were sucky anyways, but they didn't have an excuse to leave. And they said, we will basically buy out your existing contract if you come to our offering, which really just meant we'll give it to you for free until your contract with that company is up. And then you'll start paying us, right? It was a really bold move. They were well capitalized to do it, but they came out of COVID in this case, just roaring because they all of a sudden had these customers who started paying them that they had acquired when everyone was really scared. So those are some things to kind of think about.
So that particular strategy, I want to dig into a lot of these things, but that particular example, I've talked about that with mentors and toyed with the idea. And you see big companies, big brands doing it, like Verizon will buy out AT&T contracts or whatever, and when they're in a marketplace like that, where there's a couple very obvious competitors, it makes sense. You want to just target them directly. When you're in a growing market or you've got some kind of, startup competitors, do you want to cast a wide net and say, and kind of point out all these other brands, or do you think that's what do you think about that strategy?
You don't have to point out the brands, right? Like, just imagine you can just say like, we'll buy out your contract. You don't have to say AT&T. It's like, oh, you have an existing, one of the reasons you might not be converting is because you have an existing contract or an annual plan with your current help desk provider. Great. Doesn't matter who it is. We'll buy it out. Right. I think it's like the thing about pricing and the thing about competition and some of these other concepts, and I'm going to rant for a second here, is like a lot of these things, it's like, we should never infantilize our customers, right? And I think what we think sometimes is like, well, what if we let them know about a competitor? And it's like, they know that they know there's other solutions. They know, like, they maybe found you and they love your product, but they know that, like, maybe they don't know the names of them, but they're like, Chris can't be the only person doing this, right? Maybe he's the best person doing this, but he can't be the only person on earth doing this thing. Same thing with pricing, right? Oh, I'm scared to like talk to them about pricing because what if they're scared away? It's like, people know things cost money, right? Like, they know things cost money. And yes, they're not doing like a magic calculus of like, well, if it's this much value, it's this price, right? But it's like one of those things where I think that we're just kind of scared to kind of, push things forward. Like, one of our early pricing pages, we put our competitor logos on our pricing pages. Like, we were just like, you're going to do the research. So like, we've done it for you. Like, go check out our competitors. Like, we know you'll be back. Right. And I think that that's a sign. It's a nice little flex because you have to make sure your product can back it up. But also it's like, hey, like, we know these people exist. Here's who they are. Awesome. You know what I mean? Like, just check it out. So yeah, little rant, not exactly what you were saying, but I think it's
infantilize your customers. Is that what you said? Or
don't infantilize them.
Babies. I feel like I'm gonna forget how to say infantilize by next week.
Yeah, don't treat them like babies. Like, treat them like adults, like they are. They're not always gonna act like adults, but treat your customers like adults. And
yeah,
I don't know. Totally. It's just kind of funny with some of this stuff.